Nights at Freddy's book came out yesterday, the fourth club, and I think it's going to be the last. And first of all, I read the entire thing yesterday, so that was a lot. But today I wanted to just make a quick review / summary of the book, just in case none of you have read the book yet. I guess I'll make a quick summary of it. So basically, John is having nightmares about the day or the night Charlie died. Goes to work, tries to not think about it, and then he bumps into Jessica one night, and then she asks him when he's going to talk to Charlie, because at the end of the other book, Charlie miraculously reappeared. Except he insists that it's not really Charlie, because she's not the same. And then she just tells him to come to this gathering of them at Carlton's old house, because he's coming back into town, so they're having a reunion. And he says he'll think about it. And then the next day he gets fired from his job, so then he says basically screw it. So he just goes to the party. Then he soon realizes that it was a mistake. But then as he's leaving, he meets Charlie, who is just arriving. And then of course she asks him why he won't talk to him, or why he won't talk to her, and then they have a moment there. They agree to go out to dinner the next day, so then he goes. Yeah, actually wait, before they went out for dinner, Clay appeared to John, and then he told him to ask about her Aunt Jen, because he said that when they had told her that John thought he saw her on the night that Charlie died, or supposedly died, that she had seemed interested, so he asked her about that a little bit, and then she said that she was first rescued by her Aunt Jen, confusingly. And then so after the dinner, John rushed over to tell Clay about it, and then they talked a little bit, and then John left. As he was leaving, he saw this weird robot woman clown thing glad pass by him, and then he went back home, and he'd rescued Charlie's toy Theodore from the destruction, or from Charlie's belongings, and he had it, but then he saw that it started talking, so he rushed back to Clay's house to show him, but he found the house broken into, and he saw Clay lying there half dead, so they got him to the hospital. And then everyone went to the hospital, and then Charlie was standing in the doorway, not looking at Clay. And then Jessica and John eventually they decipher the words that Theodore is saying. They decipher into Silver Reef, Shining Star. Then they go to a ghost town called Silver Reef, and then they find a shining star somewhere. So then they go there, then they find a house where they find Aunt Jen living. And as Clay was in the hospital, he had been injured so that he couldn't talk very well, very coherently, but he just gave them pictures, and they were all of themselves and Charlie. So then they show these to Jen, and then she's being cryptic as usual, and then comes a knock on the door, so then they hide. Jen answers. It turns out it's Charlie. But then things don't go so well, and you hear screaming, and then John finds into this chest a different Charlie. So then they take that Charlie, and then after the Charlie who went after Jen they escaped with the real Charlie, and they found that Jen was there dead, so the other Charlie had killed her. Now that I think about it, this is not so quick of a summary, so I'll probably go quicker. So then basically they took her back to the apartment. They there was also a film reel with those pictures that Clay gave them. So they went to the library, they used it on the projector thingy. Then they found that the pictures were all of themselves, the same pictures but in a different order. And Clay had set maximum range to them, so then John zoomed in on the picture and he saw that there was some sort of robotic machinery look going on with the other Charlie. So then they rushed back to John's place because they realized they had left the real Charlie there unattended, and then they bumped into the fake Charlie, who they were acting all nervous around, and then eventually they were able to make her leave because John promised to go out on dinner with her again. So then the next day he goes out to dinner with her, and then of course Jessica and John told all of the group of friends about the fake Charlie. So then they're all hiding out. They're watching over John to make sure nothing goes wrong. And then eventually John just reveals basically that he knows what she is, and then she just calmly leaves. But then Jessica, stupidly enough, gets in her trunk and follows her, getting herself captured. And then of course the fake Charlie turns out to be some sort of a really advanced animatronic. And then they discovered that they were using the illusion chips from the previous book. So then eventually Charlie gets back on her feet. They're looking after her. And then Jessica was knocked out by the fake Charlie, and then she woke up in a room with fake Charlie, but fake Charlie was actually Circus Baby from Sister Location, which is weird. Yeah, that's something I forgot to mention. There's a whole new pizzeria though, called Circus Baby's Pizza. So then, basically she reunites with Springtrap, and then it turns out Springtrap is just an illusion that William Afton is a frail old man, because he somehow got out of the suit with a bunch of surgeries, and then he's still living, but just barely, basically. And then they have to do this whole surgery on him, where he reveals that he's moving himself piece by piece into this other being. And then, and Jessica puts together the pieces that being is actually all of the endoskeletons of the Freddy's animatronics from the first and second book. So, all of the souls are still within the thing. So she's horrified about that. And then, eventually John tells Charlie about Aunt Jen being dead, and they Charlie decides that she wants to go back there, so John goes with her. And then, also, John sends Carlton over to get some Charlie's project from the other one, because they remember an earpiece that could potentially help them, so he goes over there, and then he finds the earpiece, which is actually a thing, so that basically it's something that makes the wearer visible to Charlie's animatronics. So he reverses that and makes it so that he's invisible. So after a close encounter with fake Charlie, somehow she got to Jessica's place. He turned that on, and then he escaped invisible. Then he goes back to John's place to find that John and Charlie are gone, but he finds Marla. So then they decide to go over to Circus Baby's Pizza, and in the meanwhile, Jessica is imprisoned there, where she finds 4 children who had been captured, which earlier in the book they had met one of the children's parents, one of their mothers, and she promised to get them out safely, of course. And then once Carlton and Marla got there, they went through, and then eventually they reached where Jessica and the children were being held, but one of the children had been taken by the animatronics. So Carlton Jessica her earpiece, and she told Marla and her to get out with the children. So then they went out, and then they went to the police station, and then Carlton went over to go rescue the final child, which then he encounters William Afton, who injects, I think it's basically Remnant. It's the book's equivalent to Remnant if it's not really Remnant. It's basically this, I think he heats the animatronic being that he was piecing himself into, and then he takes some sort of essence of it, liquid from inside of it, and then he injects it into Carlton, which then he collapses. And then he wakes up in some sort of illusion or a dream with the children, with their souls, where the first thing he sees is his friend Michael, who of course if you follow these books you know is important. And then all of their drawings are split up, indicating that they need to be put back together. So he helps them put them back together, and then he convinces them that William Afton is a bad man and that they need to stop him. So then they stop him by possessing the animatronic parts, and then they catch him on fire, which I assume leads to his death, and they just narrowly rescue the child. And then Carlton gets him out, or someone gets him out of there. I don't know, I think Carlton collapses and then all of the friends come back to help him. But anyway, over to the other side where John and Charlie, so they go to Aunt Jen's old place where her body is still there. And then they find a bunch of her old records. They look through some of the stuff she's got on Henry, and they find some interesting things on one of her old toys, Ella, which was a human-like doll. And then Baby comes over, Elizabeth, and then she knocks John out basically, and then she talks to Charlie, which is why she came. And then she of course, it's near the end of the book, so this is when the real jaw droppers happen, and all the mind blows. And then Elizabeth shows her the memories that she had when she was still a little girl, before Elizabeth herself was trapped in the suit. And then she shows her how William hit her, and then how he loved the animatronic he was making more than herself, so she tried to make herself more like Baby. Then eventually she went to Baby, and of course Baby killed her and took her soul. And then the interesting thing is that she remembers it both from the child's perspective and the animatronic's perspective. So she's kind of a torn being. She's kind of an amalgamation of a bunch of different things. And then she shows memories of Charlie, and then she explains that Charlie's not actually a human per se, that Henry actually designed, took the original Ella and made it into what Charlie is. That Charlie, because at the end of the other book, William says that he didn't take Sammy, he actually took Charlie, which we wouldn't understand until now. So it turns out, at least this is what I think, that William abducted Charlie and probably killed her, and then Henry was stricken with grief over this, and then he left his wife and his son, which I guess are still alive, and then he poured all of his heart and soul into this animatronic Ella, which he made into his daughter. And his sister Jen he saw that he was being consumed by it, and she didn't like what he was doing. So he was zapping his brain, putting memories of his own into the animatronic, and he was recording videos, and he put them into the animatronic, which eventually became Charlie. But there were actually 3 different versions of the animatronic. the Charlie that we know and love is the third one. And of course, the book is called The Fourth Closet. The fourth one, there was supposed to be a fourth one, but he stopped working on it when he saw how wrong it was. And the fourth one was the endoskeleton that Charlie had seen in the dark corner from her childhood, which that memory was actually one that he recorded. That was before Charlie's creation. So then, it turns out that Elizabeth, or Baby, is actually that endoskeleton, and she has all those memories of Henry rejecting her, of William rejecting her. So she's angry with all of this rejection, and she wants to know what makes Charlie so special, because she's not real. She's not even a human. She's not even a machine with a soul, like Elizabeth is. So then, it turns out, I guess, Henry killed himself, or he designed that robot to kill him when he saw what he had done to himself, everything that had happened when it became too much to bear. So then, the rest is history, and then we come to Elizabeth and Charlie. And then Charlie actually uses that same robot, which conveniently was in that very house. Yeah, she uses it to kill both herself and Elizabeth in the process. And John runs up and he sees her, and then he's all sad. And then the next scene is just at the hospital where Carlton is recovering. Since none of the other people know what happened, they don't know. They think that Charlie is still out there. So Clay says he'll keep looking for her, but John says he won't find her. He walks out. And the last scene is where John is at the graveyard where Charlie had gone at the end of the first book, I think. And you see Henry's grave, but then you also see Charlie's grave, because Charlie had died years ago. And of course, for me, the biggest drop of this book was the revelation of Charlie's last name. At least I think it's her last name. It might be her middle name. I think it's her last name, which is Emily. So it's Charlie Emily. I don't know if it's Henry Emily. I mean, Emily. The name Emily is female, so I don't know if it's. I guess it could be their last name. So I kind of already talked about the big reveals of this book that Charlie's actually, which Pat, he totally called it. He said that Charlie was some sort of advanced robot that had memories of the actual child in it, and which is 100% the case. Well, yeah, it's the case. That's the case. So props to him for that. So yeah, she's a robot, I guess, and then now she's dead. So that's the end of it. And also, I forgot to mention at the very end of the book, he walks away with some strange woman, which I'm not sure if that means it's Charlie, if it's Charlie's mother. I doubt that, or if it's supposed to signify that John is dead now or something. I don't know. That's kind of far-fetched, but I don't know. This is just my first impressions. I haven't seen anyone else do anything on this book yet, since, as I said, it came out just yesterday, and I'm recording this in the morning. So there hasn't been enough time for people to analyze the book yet. And of course, I know lots of pages were leaked online early, but I stayed blind to them, and I stayed blind to all the videos people did on them. Maybe I'll watch them now, but I don't think too many pages leaked, so there's not that much to watch. So then, yeah, and then there's William's death, which was kind of confusing, because I don't think it stated blatantly, oh, William is dead now. I think it just said that his hospital gown caught on fire, and of course all of the animatronics were attacking him. So I think it's heavily implied that he died, and I think this is the final book, so it would make all sense if he died. Except there are a few gray areas that we still don't know about, like Charlie's mom and Sammy. If he didn't take Sammy, then Sammy must still be alive, and the mother must still be alive, because in one of the memories where Jen was talking to Henry about how unhealthy this animatronic was that was consuming him, she mentioned that he could still be with his son and his wife, so that means that they're still alive and that he left them. So they must still be somewhere, which is interesting. But if this is the last book, I don't know if we'll ever learn anything more about that. Maybe it's not that important, I don't know. But yeah, the only ways that I can think of that this could actually tie into the game lore is Henry's last name, and then Elizabeth. Maybe, I don't know. Well, Elizabeth is the only Afton child that is mentioned that's actually in the books and the games. So maybe we learned a little bit more about Elizabeth / baby and who she is and how she feels. But in the end, she really is, she's just a victim, because she's just a little girl who has this psychopath for a father, and being a little girl, being a child, she just wants his approval, but he doesn't care about her, he just cares about his animatronics. So she tries to conform to that, and she uses lipstick and she tries to make herself look like baby, but it doesn't work. And William hits her, and then eventually she goes up to the animatronic and gets trapped inside. But still, in the book, William is trying to recreate that, because he wants to do that to himself, because he sees his body is frail and dying, so he wants himself to live on inside one of those suits. And at one point in the book he even says, "You're still," because she asks him, "Am I not enough?" And he says, "No, you're not." So again, she's being constantly rejected by all these father figures, by her actual father, by Henry, who she has a weird relationship with, being the animatronic he rejected. And her last line, I think it's her last line, is, "It's not fair," after she's been stabbed by the thing Charlie activated. So yeah, in the end, she was just a victim. She was another one of Afton's victims. She wasn't murdered by him, but I mean, you could say that she was indirectly murdered by him. So yeah, those were my initial thoughts on the book. And as I said, I haven't seen anyone analyze this book yet because it came out just yesterday, and I've tried to stay blind to all of the unfortunate leaks online. I know several pages were leaked online. Also, the last thing, the children, they were set free, which I thought was really great, and it was like it brought a tear to my eyes. The final thing that it showed, where Carlton was in the bed, they said that they found this drawing right next to him, and it was 5 children on a hill, on a green hill, waving, which I thought was really beautiful. So yeah, those were my initial thoughts on the book. So you can tell me what you thought if you've read the book, or what you thought of my summary, if my summary even helped. If you haven't read the book, I recommend you go read it anyway. It's not that long comparatively. I mean, compared to the Lord of the Rings, it's childhood play. So anyway, thank you all for watching. Like this video if you like this video. Dislike if you didn't. Subscribe if you want to join the Team 100. And Ultimate Custom Night is about to come today. It's supposed to come today. I don't know if it's out yet. If it is out, then I'll do a live stream on it. So anyway, I'll see you guys